Welcome to the Al-Attiyah Foundation's new podcast series, where experts share their insights on current and urgent energy matters for the benefit of our members and the general community. My name's Naweed Jabakil, and today I'm joined by Dr. Veronica Bermudez Benito, Senior Research Director at the Qatar Environment and Energy Research Institute. Before we start this session, I'd just like to remind all of our listeners to please visit the Foundation's website at www.abhafoundation.org or follow the Foundation at Al-Attiyah FNDN. Now, on to today's topic. Well, the energy transition to net zero carbon emissions is well and truly underway, and how electricity is generated will be a key component of that transition. Solutions will be local, of course, as different circumstances will prevail from location. Today, we'll look at research on how electricity might be generated in Qatar. Good afternoon, Veronica, and welcome to an Al-Attiyah Foundation activity.
Good afternoon to you and everyone in the audience. And thank you very much for having me today to discuss this very interesting topic.
Great. Before we get started, then, for the benefit of our overseas listeners, let's start with a brief description, if you will, of the Institute. What does it do and where does it sit within the Hamad bin Khalifa University in Qatar?
Yes, so QEERI is the Qatar Environment and Energy Research Institute, and it is a research institute with a national mandate for energy, water, and environment. We are focusing research, development, and innovation in these three topics, but not only for Qatar, also regionally and globally. So we have the scientific and technical expertise that is needed to support the visionary management at HBKU, Hamad bin Khalifa University, and Qatar Foundation. We have state-of-the-art facilities, including more than 4,000 square meters of indoor lab space, and 35,000 square meters of outdoor test facility, which is very relevant to the discussion we are going to have today. So we think that we are vital partners and collaborators in the country for national and international stakeholders in the field of sustainability, in particular for the energy, water, and environment sectors.
And you have a wide variety of energy projects under your management at QEERI. Let's start with one thing that you're particularly interested in, solar photovoltaic, the industry and technology as well, both in Qatar and worldwide. Just tell us a bit about your work into the PV world.
Yes, so solar photovoltaic, or commonly known as solar PV, is one of the areas where QEERI has a great expertise, and specifically the energy center that I lead. We are working on it as part of our mandate to assist Qatar to tackle the grand challenges related to energy, water, and environment. So Qatar is well-known, very well-known globally as the fourth largest producer of dry natural gas and the largest producer of liquefied natural gas. So we are looking for ways to convert oil and gas to added value products, while at the same time, we are looking to ways of optimizing the national resources by saving them. And for that, solar energy can definitively be a tangible solution. So the availability of solar resources in Qatar is among the highest in the world. However, the quality of these resources is very dependent on the various environmental factors, including and not limited to heat, dust, and other that we may be discussing later. So what we are doing at QEERI is we are working to identify and quantify the solar resource of those solar technologies that will be best suited for Qatar. And in particular, we are really focused in the specific climate environment and desert environment, because it is a challenge not only for the country, but also for a wide number of countries and regions across the world. So we have very recently issued the first ever solar atlas for Qatar, which is a very important material for decision makers and for future PV power plants. And what we have been here, and our added value has been to develop a methodology based on machine learning algorithms, where ground measured radiometric data have been compared with available solar radiations. And Thanks to that, we have been able also to work and to participate in Qatar plans to build the 800 megawatt power plant that is now being built in the country since the decision was taken in 2020. And we are supporting the country in assessing them, assessing the companies that are working in this project to select the best technologies that can be used, to doing on-site measurements and on-site assessing the on-site capabilities for the power plant operation. Other key activity that we are running in solar is related to solar rooftop photovoltaic potential. And we have selected Education City in Qatar Foundation as a living laboratory, focusing in the development of a software platform that estimates the potential yield of rooftop solar PV systems in Qatar. And this will help us to promote the adoption of residential and commercial PV by pioneering the development of a solar community and ecosystem in the Education City that further and later can be extrapolated to the country. Other important things that we are doing is related with the integration of PV in the country at global level, in shelters, or in, for example, we have recently been working with Ashghal and its contractors in the development of a PV power bus depot in Lusail City here in Qatar for the electric bus float. To address the country's targets for electrical vehicles. We have a partnership with a local farmer where we are helping him to go out from diesel generators and going to solar. So it's a very hands-on applied research that we are conducting in the country.
Yeah, it sounds it. And just in terms of PV development, you said you want to try and expand it to commercial and residential businesses, organizations, individuals in Qatar. Lots of people would look at the region, countries like Qatar, and say it's year-round sunshine. Why isn't it? Why isn't solar so much more popular there? I assume there are two main problems: climate being one, and also, as you mentioned, the very low cost of gas. Qatar's success in the LNG world, perhaps things like dusting on cells as a result of climate. What are the main challenges holding back PV development?
So one of the main challenges for the country and for the region holding back PV development is policy. We in QEERI we have also policy research, and PV has been developed across the world, mainly pushed by policy decisions and by incentives. Apart from that, there is also it is not a problem, it's the challenges of the weather conditions in the country. So, for example, Qatar has the heat that the country receives is quite intense and does impact a lot the amount of electricity produced by the PV modules. However, this can be predictable because all the technologies have this kind of analysis done in their fact sheets, and it is known, and we can predict, and when we size the power plant, it can be taken into consideration. However, other environmental conditions as dust and sand, along with humidity and salinity, cause also very big losses in the PV panels. So the more the dust, the lesser the amount of light that get into the panel, and the less electricity is produced. And one of the main problems with these parameters is that they cannot be, they are not really predictable. And we need to consider them for sizing the power plants. And if a power plant neglects the impact of dusting in the panels, the cost of electricity will be significantly higher than the one plant. So, and this is not only a problem for Qatar. I mean, you can find these problems also in all desert environments, like in Central Australia, California, Arizona, etc. Each place has specific particularities, but the global problem is the same. At QEERI, what we are doing is to solve these problems. We are working in validating and demonstrating cleaning technologies. that are adapted to these weather conditions, and in particular the dry cleaning technologies because of the lack of water availability in desert environment. And we are also trying to develop models that can help us to forecast the soiling, which means the dust accumulation in the PV panels. And this forecasting can help the PV power plants operators to optimize their operations. The low cost of the gas, I do not see it as a challenge, but I see, to the contrary, for me, it's a catalyzer. It can be really a catalyzer for PV deployment, because one of the main problems known for, or challenges known for PV is the viability and seasonality. So a low cost of gas associated with being the oil and gas raw material with that produce or emit less CO2 can be really a catalyzer for PV, because it can give the needed stability and dispatchability to the grid, associated with if we associate it with carbon capture and storage solution. So it is not a challenge; it is an opportunity.
And interesting, you talk about the different parts of the energy mix there. One of the great changes we've seen with not just PV cells, but solar power in general over the past 2 decades is this enormous, almost unbelievable reduction in the cost of generating electricity. What's that been down to, do you think, as someone who's tracked the industry for so long? Is it just economies of scale? Is it technology that's driven this? We've seen China, for example, really bringing down the cost. And why isn't that cost being passed on to the consumer, do you think, particularly in places like Qatar?
So I would say that these changes on cost are based on both. It's just when we look to the cost itself. So economy of scales was an initial major catalyzer for cost reduction. And as you said, in the early 2000s, there was a very big investment by Chinese in all the value chain for silicon PV technologies, and this drove the cost really down. And one of the things that we can say that all market forecasting were wrong, because they were underestimating the cost reduction. Today, what we are seeing is more a cost reduction that is driven by improvement on technologies, and also by power plant design and operation practices that are also being improved, and this contribute to cost reduction. Translating that to the customer today, it is we are in a very early stage in PV deployment and PV integration in energy grid. So globally, PV is less than 1% of the electricity production. So we are not seeing that yet, but it will come with time. Here in Qatar, it's also, once again, it's a policy matter. If there would be more incentives for PV, for example, rooftop PV, we would see more projects in the country, and this will contribute to reduce the costs, especially for the industry that has a high level of electricity cost.
Yeah, and looking at policy, I mean, one thing, looking at my notes that jumped out at me was this claim that all of Qatar's current electricity needs could be met and satisfied by photovoltaic without too much impact on the use of land or the landscape, given the size of Qatar. That's quite an interesting fact. Is that true? And also, we've seen that there's a major generating facility being built at the moment that you touched upon earlier. Does that signal a shift in policy from the government there and the industry at large?
I do not know if it is. I would not say that it is a change in policy yet. What it is clear is just that Qatar is taking a range of actions to reduce its greenhouse gas emissions and to position itself as a leader in the development of climate change and clean energy technologies. So domestically, Qatar has a renewable energy goal of sourcing 20% of the country's total energy from renewable sources. And if we look to the renewable sources in the country, this can only be achieved with solar. So developing clean technology is a focus for Qatar, given its resources and the opportunities to develop technologies that can address these climate change challenges for the country. The country, as I told before, has started the construction of a 800 megawatt PV power plant, which includes 2 million PV modules, and that it will cover 10% of the electricity produced, the capacity electricity for the country. One of the main advantages in Qatar is that it presents an ideal case for PV compared with other countries. Here in Qatar, the electricity demand load is higher in summer and during the day, which is exactly when we have higher sun irradiation and when we have more PV production. So this match is a very interesting match, and problems related with negative cost of electricity from renewable energies that we have seen in other mild climates will not happen here. We did a very rough calculation, and if we assume that we install the adequate batteries and ancillary systems to provide energy in Qatar when there is not direct production, it means when there is not sun available, we would need about 15% of the country coverage. Plus the needed space for the associated batteries and the need capacity addition to account for losses. 50% is not so much if we consider that we can make use of rooftops, and we can make use not only of rooftops, every roof that there is also in shades, in parking lots, and so on. So I really think that if we look to 2050 and beyond, Qatar can leverage the geographical strategic location and reinvent itself as a global epicenter for solar energy, solar renewable energy innovation. Because one of the advantages of the country is the country size. I mean, it is a real life test laboratory to develop technologies that can be really implemented in a straightforward way. And this can be extrapolated and can be exported to other regions.
And just looking at, we've touched upon infrastructure, we've spoken about policy, but at the end of the day, individuals have a role to play here as well. And one thing associated with the region, the Gulf region in particular, is that people waste too much energy, they use too much energy. If renewable takes off, if solar plays a bigger role, do you think people are less likely? Is there evidence that they're going to change their behaviors, or will it have the adverse effect?
So changing people behavior, it only comes if the commodity is not changed. So it is true that in the region, many other countries, but in particular in the region, there is a huge amount of electricity waste, energy waste in general, and water also. And this comes due to the fact that it is quite cheap. For some, it is even at zero cost, and that there is not a real awareness of this waste. So we at QEERI and also in Qatar Foundation, we are working in this awareness, because of course the cheapest electricity is the cheapest and cleanest electricity is the one that we do not waste. So it can happen, but we need from policy incentives from one side, and also awareness, and keep the commodity of the people. If we ask the people to switch 2 degrees more their AC, it will not happen.
Yeah. So one thing that one aspect in the region that's often looked at is motor vehicles and transportation. Do you think that the PV world and PV capacity can have a role to play there as well?
I will not say that PV will fully satisfy the electricity needs for electrical vehicles, but of course it will be a very important part of the energy mix needed to satisfy this demand. And this will be done in agreement the targets of the country in terms of CO2 reduction emissions. So Qatar has a very aggressive and very ambitious target of achieving 20% share of electric vehicles in 2030. And this is a great objective if it comes associated with PV objectives. And the country has done that. And I was telling before about the engagement we have had with Ashghal and its contractors for the development of a PV bus depot that where the electric bus fleet will be used for the World Cup 2022. So I mean, there are very big and amazing targets for the country to moving towards a more sustainable development and reduce the country's CO2 emissions per capita.
And let's just shift focus a bit now, if we can, to concentrated solar power or CSP plants, because PV photovoltaic isn't the only game in town. Let's talk about CSP. Are these viable in Qatar? Do you think those sorts of plants, and will they be a way of desalinating water if combined cycle gas plants are no longer used in the country?
So one of the main challenges of CSP for development for the country is the solar radiation. So the country has a very good solar radiation and very good levels of global horizontal radiation, but the quality for CSP is not the right one. So when you look to the solar radiation, there are different components. So there is the global horizontal irradiation, which is the one that considers all the radiation and is the one that is fitted for PV. But for CSP, we need to take into consideration the direct normal irradiation, which is the DNI. So to be techno-economically viable, the DNI needs to be higher than around 2,200 kilowatt hour per square meter, or the country is around 1,800 kilowatt hour per square meter for this specific DNI. So we think that PV technologies are more likely to be cost competitive more than CSP in Qatar. And this brings to us to, okay, we cannot have desalination power plants powered by solar, direct power by solar, but let's have electric driven desalination power plants where the electricity can really come from PV, and PV for the country is the real go solution. So it is a no, I do not think CSP will make it in the country. But however, there are solutions to have a solar-driven desalination power plants.
Very interesting, and more acronyms to add to the energy dictionary there.
Yes.
Well, thank you. Yeah, just when you think you've heard them all. Thank you so much for your time. I think our time is just about up, but again, really appreciate you giving up your time to share your thoughts on the potential development of solar power and electricity generation, both in Qatar and around the world. Veronica, thank you. And for the listeners, thank you for tuning in. Once again, watch this space for the next Al-Attiyah podcast in the series, and stay up to date on the website and on our Twitter feed. I'm Naweed Jabarkil. Thank you and goodbye.